Welcome back, everybody, to the SCL. My name's Infernosis, joined here by my great friend Mick, and we've got ourselves more Valorant action to close out this week and etch ourselves, Dallas, ever closer to the coveted end of playoffs, the final stage, and then hopefully for a lot of the teams that have made it this far, the stage itself for the LAN event coming up in May.
Yeah, got a lot to go ahead and sew up here, considering, obviously the point value goes ahead and accumulates into a lot into the factor in that. But, already look at these teams, look at the majority of the bracket, and even more so kind of getting to these final stages. Every little bit kind of matters to some degree, especially if you're new here around to the SCL, especially this season. But considering that we are seeing somewhat of repeats in terms of some of these stages, it really comes down to the new guys and really having to make that impression to say that, well, they deserve a chance as well.
Yeah, and right now we've got a team that stepped up in this series of the day to start things off. We got a team that stepped up, didn't even need to play their first round of this stage of playoffs. They get their bye, they're the second seed. They can ride that wave a little bit longer, but that also means they have a little bit less maybe experience against the teams at this caliber that have made it to playoffs, as we've now seen the secondary team stepping in, the 10th seed, actually take down a really big opponent and now has tested themselves tried and true and can start to use the experience they've gained there to hopefully elevate them above this Burton Parker side that is that second seed team that didn't have to play that first round. And hopefully they can see it in a pretty fun selection of maps as well. As you look down below us here, you'll see that Icebox and Breeze were taken off the board. That means Split will be played. I don't know why teams ever would try to do this, but hey, it is whatever. We have an interesting selection of maps in general, though, because Sunset follows suit directly behind it, leading in with Lotus to conclude, which is a pretty popular map. But seeing Split and Sunset taken first as our 1 and 2 is really impressive here, Dallas.
Yeah, I think it's also a testament to some degree of the teams actually having specialization picks to some point. I mentioned over the course of the season over and over again, I get tired of seeing the team default, the collegian default just over and over because, it just obviously gets a little bland to some degree, but also you don't really get to see teams kind of flex themselves out too much, show where they actually make sure to really refine those strengths and practices, and they just kind of play the same old game, and it just ends up looking like a very close knit, very constructed version of what would be like your ranked game, maybe compared to something we actually get to see these teams find a constructed team set, find themselves an actual composition, give themselves some strats, and even then just look like their executes are actually panned out before the game even starts.
They got to have well-depth strat book, right? If they don't have that, then there's not really as impressive of a foray when you pick this map. So we're going to see truly how it goes down, because if we see the same old of walking into a site and praying, I'm going to maybe think that this wasn't the wisest decision you would make in a make it or break it playoff stage where you need to get the wins more than anything else up to this point to try to make sure you get that ticket, to try to make sure you get through that first place for the first season of Valorant here for the SEL. And we always remember the first winner of the Rocket League side of SEL. I don't, but I'm sure somebody out there does. So you want to be the team that also is remembered that exact same way as well, which is funny because I'm pretty sure I casted that finals. I have terrible memory apparently here, Dallas. But I think for Split, a lot of teams struggle on one side more than the other. The map tends to be dominated one side over the other. The problem is we never know which side it's going to be. Sometimes it's defense, sometimes it's offense, and it's never have any consistency. It could be the same team struggling on attack one week, and then the next week defensively can't find themselves keeping the team off the site and getting that spike defused whatsoever.
Considering that, on Split, this map, we do see some kind of like usual defaults to some degree, but there is a little bit of leniency, all things considered. You do expect that Sky to come through as an initiator. With those nerfs that came out recently, we do see Echo being traded out every now and again, but that's not going to be presented here today, at least to start things off. That Breach is a little bit of a default as well, something that kind of presents itself every now and again, but even then you go for that double controller maybe to kind of replace him if you do feel like it. But that Raze being just the default duelist, that makes sense for both sides to be whipping it out. But for a mirror composition as well, presenting would usually be kind of the case here to some degree because of how important Viper is, when I mentioned with that double controller. That's where you have the Omen and you play the Viper, and you find that kind of controlling across the map like we do see with UGA's side. But Bruton Parker obviously want to get a little more aggressive with their setups. They're going to kind of press the side a little more aggressively, and with something like that Sky and that Breach, you're just working on playing purely off those flashes, because the Gecko, while you do want to have that fifth man to be in the fight constantly, you're not really getting too much out of that Dizzy compared to what you would get out of the pure crowd control and stuns that Breach does provide.
The amount of corners and walls, especially here in towers, you can see the fly cam goes through. Breach is unbelievably powerful in terms of utility and in terms of their kit on this map specifically. There's a lot of maps where Breach kind of fits in more so than a lot of other initiators, but this map kind of has its own little stage where you can say, hey, you can use this as a way to have your Scott, have your Tasmanian Tiger, your guiding lights around these corners, and you can also use the corners more actively by having that breach to have a little bit more of an aggressive setup. And I think that's a perfect map for it. And it's going to be an idea for Bruton Parker if they can make the best use of it now on the defense first and foremost, so they don't let this game get too far out of hand, as we see UGA Black initially pressuring off inside alley as expected for an attacking team in this map, as it is a heavy middle stage congestion early. And now they're going to worm their way up with a toxic screen, no less. In through garage, as tap damage is done through the toxic screen, and Shrooms, that's the worst player you have on your team to take damage.
Yeah, I mean, just being the only player that can't get that rejuvenate, can't find that extra health coming back is good. And already everybody else is going to be looking at just an easy W pusher for the first round. Not too much you can really set up, not too much you can really check up these players off from. But a big thing you can do is find just kills nearly from anywhere. Knowing that already why Trizzy just has a lot of kills under their belt. And even then, still considering the kind of health pool that's available, no matter what, Bruton Parker can still get this thing done. Sure, it's a bunch of classics, but still, with one ghost still available and one up for Kevin, one on site, and knowing the shots are there, at least for Zach, that's the first round accumulated for UGA. And it's only 22 HP remaining in one player. But it's that first round. You don't really care that much about the remaining guns. This is where really starts to matter, considering this we're going to start coming through. Already a couple sheriffs coming up from Bruton Parker, which I can really go ahead and kind of tilt my hat to, considering that, I mean, those guns can still necessarily do it all. But Trizzy's going to be the one you got to really keep your eyes on, because that Phantom and those two Bulldogs as well, to some degree, are really what need to be carried on into the next if you do find yourself some relative success. But if that gun's dropped, honestly, Bruton Parker have themselves maybe around to just go ahead and get themselves for free.
Cover going out.
When a round is so darn close like it was last round in Dallas, where it's quite literally a one bullet game, not just a one player game and a 1v1 or in the final few moments, a single bullet differentiated the two sides, tends to be a lot of credits typically floating out there in the ether. And Bruton Parker, they didn't have enough to do too much. They felt comfortable with the sheriffs. They like the idea. I think that UGA Black, when they pick up these rifles in a round like this map isn't so solid when it comes to longer range engagements off towards the B side. So it almost forces their hand for UGA Black to take control of space in towards mid, as you would expect for this map in the first place, and then use that as a pivot point off towards the A side. Because you can see their Cyphers waiting back inside A lobby just outside of attacker spawn. The rest of the team stacking up inside mid. They have the option to rotate off towards B if they so choose so. And they'll try to gather as much information as possible before doing so with this Tasmanian Tiger. And there is no one in heaven, and that sings to through. Hey guys, maybe this B site is actually as free as it seems to be, as they'll smoke off the remnants and the escapes out for Bruton Parker and stack themselves into this site to get this plant down through, and also put themselves into rock for a perfect post plant as Cap sneaks down Shrooms and denies the initial spike plant.
Yeah, at least, well, it wasn't until a couple seconds ago when you actually saw the engage go through. You saw the utility being funneled out, but even then now, more so when you actually see these sites in their way. The one player that didn't have a sheriff and had that classic to work with is already going ahead and surmounting up the kill, but the rest of the team can't really find anything out. So those sheriffs we were expecting to have at least a little bit of an impact, maybe holding these close corners, when UGA Black has so much coverage there, especially when it comes around to that Tasmanian Tiger and even the follow-up, and you look at maybe those rays covering those corners. I mean, a Trailblazer's enough to get you on site for free, but I mean, everything else there's just kind of icing on top of the cake and gives yourself that free real estate you want to work with. So those three guns I mentioned, the two Bulldogs and that Phantom being carried over, no real congestion there. The rest of Bruton Parker now having their actual legitimate buy come through. They made the investment to go ahead and say, let's find these sheriffs to make sure we can maybe have some lackluster armor in the next. And, well, we're going to see how that works out for them, because as you mentioned, the close quarters combat is pretty good here, and it's definitely optimal. But considering that there is some long range encounters, when you have half armor, Phantom literally amounts to the same exact thing as a Vandal with that one-shot headshot.
Now some jump off from heaven. Tasmanian Tiger just a little awry in the process of trying to stun and concuss Caps. Guiding that around the corner, but it's Trizzy inside that actually go down first and foremost as Caps gets him with util and cleans up two now with the Phantom. UGA Black are finding no success on site. All of the kills they've gained are coming from Baze and Zach, who are inside Garage, exiting it up inside heaven from Mail. 3 players left for Bruton Parker, a total dismantling almost purely off the back of Caps with a 3K on site, and BPC secure themselves that third round they were looking for. And UGA Black really none the wiser about where the positioning could have and should have been, since they decided to drop away from those high grounds and contest so in the face of UGA Black, giving them no information for the very next possible round they go in towards B on a slow con push. and also securing the round win, now putting them at a question and say, hey, we're going to actually have to buy stuff up. Let's make sure we all have rifles. And the real game starts now.
And while we do have the 3-2 setup already, going ahead, allocating the majority of these players towards these A site, I wasn't expecting nearly as fast as the combat as what we really got, especially a trade coming through, expecting that to be more of a one-sided affair. But the UGA Black to have that Viper's Pit, it makes a lot more sense to pop it on this side. A little more open, you can find a lot more real estate off the back of it, and knowing that entire kind of indent that happens towards that A side of the map also once again becomes completely covered by that ultimate. But looking at the rest of the team, seeing what's being done here, I want to look at Zach specifically. Already sitting at 4-1 on the board, has pushed to the middle area every single time the rest of the team goes B. And I want to see whether or not Brute and Parker kind of catch on to this whole pattern of whether or not they can go ahead and snuff out that Cypher every single time and maybe get themselves a little bit more emphasis on that middle control, because it doesn't seem like UJ really wanted all that much. The only time we really saw him pushing for it so far has been during that second round.
Burton Parker still playing very calm and collected, mostly stacking up heavy now in towards A main. They're peeking into lobby, making sure nobody is contesting this for the side of UGA Black. The whole team, though, they're elsewhere. They're off towards B. They're stacked up inside garage opening, and with the utility, the smoke's going down up towards heaven. That will sing out to UGA Black. We've made the wrong guess. We've now stepped in the wrong direction, and we just need to try to keep them off this for as long as possible to allow for an easier transition of power. But unfortunately, you can't do it for the whole team gets there. Still needing the one player to step up towards Alley, and they finally sting in there. It zaps down from heaven, goes Wilhelm, taking down the doppelganger that is Zach. It's a guiding light goes around the corner. Can Shrooms get it? No, they can't. What's going on with Shrooms? Williams taking down 2 players off of a hasty drop down from heaven, and Bruton Parker just sing woes to this UGA Black side saying, hey, we've got speed, we've got swiftness. You should have put that down way sooner to position a lot quicker.
Yeah, I mean, going ahead, Bruton Parker, I mean, finally getting themselves a defensive round. It seemed like it was off the back of just them having that better positioning, having those better kills, and even more so just getting themselves in the right spots to get those positionings, and even better yet, get that utility set up. We already saw that kind of 3K come through from Caps in the earlier round, on that round number 3, to kind of go ahead and facilitate the rest of it. But we didn't really see the rest of the team kind of culminate off the back end, really find themselves those perfect kills and get those lineups and kind of filter in that domino effect that you want to have as a team for a clean round. So already going ahead, creating that lockup, that first blood over towards that A side. That's a big part of it, but even more so, a bigger thing there is making sure that Viper got knocked off the board. The fact you even had that Viper's Pit go off and then snuff it out, well, at that point, you're kind of understanding that if these guys can retake blind, what you're going to do with full vision, well, we're about to find out.
First blood coming in for Limp, and they can't get up the rope. No escape over here as Baze uses there from the shadows to get a little bit of pertinent intel, I guess. Trying to work from it for that time onwards. It's an even trade, though, after that frag back. It's unfortunate for BPC losing and afterwards not being able to get up from that rope, but it is whatever if you can have Wilhelm, who's already done pretty darn spectacular here, Dallas. Hold down the fort that is this A objective as they hide within a Cypher cage. Round the corner of Elbow, down goes Zach. And Wilhelm is doing good work so far. But one more is crowded around here, and Shrooms will have no problem with the Stinger, catching the flank of Wilhelm off guard. As Truth is up close and personal, guiding light. No Seekers around the bend, as a reload must be made. Trizzy up inside tower, not available to really assist their teammate here until they can collect the rifle. And this has turned this into an even 2-on-2. Samo. Space claimed an Elbow. Can't get much further from there as Shrooms gets the Stinger shot of a century. The distance unbelievable. And Samo has to get the last 2 to secure. BPC barely scrape away a man advantage, away with a win to get the round needed to go up.
So much damage they've already done to Shrooms that, I mean, quite frankly, you're going ahead and factoring that player out of the fight. They're nothing but just really a distraction at that point, a prey for the rest of the Bruton Parker to really chase after, while UGA's Black's real predator is sitting up and towards that heaven area looking to find those secured kills. But I mean, considering that already Bruton Parker once more a much closer margin, all things considered, still a round win nonetheless. Seekers to work with, and UGA Black even more so. Well, I have to give a testament to the amount of ultimates being used by them. They're making sure to funnel these things out, making sure to get them off early, so they rotate and they find themselves a second round and just kind of have that rotation to work with compared to find these all-in-one rounds that seem like an all-or-nothing real attempt, where
triggered.
you only really find
my eyes
one
are
of
down.
those a half, and everything else just kind of feels like if we get it, use it. So, I mean, I respect that. I would even more so want to see Britton Parker kind of use theirs in the same exact way. You see Secrets maybe for the retake, but if we already see Sambo finding enough kills here to start things off,
I know
being traded in the
exactly.
process, quite
Last
frankly, it
player
doesn't matter.
standing.
Already 2 kills to their name. Wilhelm finding another 2, so it only comes down to a singular individual having to clutch things up and doesn't even have the spike in their grasp.
Yeah, they thought they could have managed to, I guess, worm their way into some sort of success. That's why they popped the neural theft. And there's no way, Zach, that you're going to be able to steal that away. No way!
God.
Wilhelm just gets caught off guard, gets hit with the worst FOV you've ever seen. It's expected, but it's one of those where you just kind of like shimmy, suck in the gut, and let him pass. That's great trigger discipline coming out there from Zach to at least ensure that even if this round is going to be lost as anticipated, they at least are making it so you've got to spend an extra 5,000 credits-ish on top of it, along with the success story you get from the extra credits from the win to make matters worse. Up goes Britton Parker now to 4-2, and it really does seem like big hero plays that aren't even hero plays here, Dallas. You'd think a hero play is coming back from a 1v4, from 1v3. No, that's 5v5s, and you're still seeing single players from BPC tear down 2, tear down 3 on a really solid and well-strung Russian from UGA Black on either objective now up to this point.
That's the whole thing, though, is that it does come down to the rush downs that you're mentioning. They're going ahead, finding themselves a single avenue of entry, and what feels like every single time they go into a site, they left in these B mains, these A mains. They've really taken that having control from either side, and now they're actually opting for something different. Going down the middle, looking to kind of spread out the resources to some degree. You already see that Cypher sneaking into the A side, so that's where they want to find that emphasis. That's how to make that push, already with that smoke being up there towards middle.
Wow.
But when Brute and Parker understand this, want to find the rotate and want to fight that, they don't use any utility for it. They just blindly swing it and come out into 3 players waiting to just mow them down. So already
Last
it comes down to
player
only 2
standing.
singular players on that site. Now make it 1, and it really is just Wilhelm remaining, who, well, understanding those cages, UGA Black's got plenty of guns there to just spray it through. So a 3rd round here for UGA, a little bit more success finally coming to the middle. Their first rifle round here in the half so far. And, well, I'm expecting them to get at least a little bit more, so long as they make sure to kind of spread themselves out a little more frequently. Because, like I said, that just main avenue push that we're seeing over and over again. I mean, it works to some degree, but when you see this Britton Parker team and what they're capable of doing, and knowing that there's a number 2 seed going up against you as number 10, they're going to hit those shots probably a lot more consistently.
Yeah, they earned their way here. They belong here. They were not only earned their way here, they earned their way here instantly when it came to this stage. You had to take a fight off against an earlier opponent and had a pretty good fight about it in the first place. Britton Parker's coming in here, fresh blood. They don't have to worry about it whatsoever. They've done too well in this season to be concerned with the bigger matters of a first-round game here in this phase of playoffs. So you do see, once again, the pressure from UGA Black whittling through this middle stage alley side. And you have already control off towards the ropes as the player is kind of nestled inside there. But you have no one off towards male. A trap wire is connecting off towards heaven. 3 players stacked heavy on that B side in a first blood from a wraparound through attacker spawn. Now puts UJ Black in this big concern factor of saying, hey, not only are we in a really weird spot where we're not sure where to transition towards, we can't go backwards because spawn has been overlapped and taken over, and we can't go to B because Wilhelm is so darn good in this game so far. We can't fight this player so easily. They just can't find the easy one. A trade off towards ropes, a trade off inside male in heaven, a wraparound again for base, evens the odds even further. And this is a full map prowl for both of these teams on this map, Dallas. They are trying to vie for contention.
There's already enough information there to let you know that obviously UGA Black are at a health deficit here compared to the 2. I mean, sure, Raze is taking a little bit of damage, but you've seen now 2 ultimates being absent on the side of UGA. Meanwhile, you do have that showstopper for a retake. But what I like even here is the fact they're playing for the retake together. They find a way to get to each other, make sure to play out their numbers, work for the trades. But even then, you still don't get enough here. You give base and space. You let them find the initial kill, and even more so, it puts Wilhelm into a situation where Where do I go? Who do I fight? Well, if that's the one with all the utility. That's the one with the full health, and that's the one with the shots to clear it out as well. So with Zach barely going ahead and staying alive in that last round, it's still a gun to carry over to the next nonetheless. And it's still an outstanding round for UGA to really just kind of come from the ashes, considering that, I mean, as you mentioned, that spawn lurk that was going through, it just completely removes your option of backing up and trying again. And you have to commit wherever you are at that point. And they just knew B wasn't an option already. And you saw that, well, Wilhelm was able to be there and find the kill and just knock out whatever presence was already there.
Don't give them ground.
BBC now forced into an eco round, something that UGA Black have been whittling their way towards in terms of their credits for the last few rounds, especially with the last 2 wins. It's greatly assisted in that. You can see that Bruton Parker are trying to be hyper aggressive. That alley control that failed them 3 rounds prior, now being attempted here. Maybe I should say 2 rounds prior, third if you consider this one as well. Now being attempted here on an eco makes a little bit more sense, since you have to put players there. You have to set the team up in certain spaces to catch UGA off guard. You really need to make sure that if there is going to be a firefight, it starts to favor you, as Truth gets a little bit of active information for players stepping out from stalls. And the guiding light just maybe sets up something perfect. We finally see Bruton Parker swing out with utility to help assist it, but the guns just aren't there, Dallas. You gotta hit perfect shots if you're BPC, and you're just not doing it. 2 kills to your name after having 4 players full flashed, 2 of them paranoid, all of them hit by a paint shell. Just body shots, 2 of them alone from all 4 players swinging would have secured more than just 1 kill. But it wasn't enough for the side of BPC. UGA Black now are in a 1v3 at a gun advantage, with Wilhelm not being able to make it much farther. And a round up now.
Yeah, that was a big thing I was really looking at, was the confidence in that fight and really just kind of taking it. I mean, we saw a lot of these Bruton Parker players just kind of going ahead, being pretty hesitant to the fact of even swinging that back towards mid, and understandably so. I mean, you don't really have the best guns, but I think they're just not really too aware of how many players were actually flashed. They didn't know what the circumstances were that was handed to them. They say, okay, maybe we can take a free fight on maybe 1 or 2 of these players, but they're running to all 4 or 5. It's a different situation, a different game, and it kind of just changes everything up because you feel like you need more util thrown out, even if you do hit them with literally everything. But one thing that they do need right now is going to be this timeout. Figure out what's going on, kind of figure out what's in the air, what are they feeling, what are they not. And I think, honestly, I mean, their game plan has been fine so far. The way they're just kind of hold these defaults, they're looking good for it. But the biggest thing they're kind of giving up is these kills that are just seeping through mid every single time. Even then, let's take that round 2 rounds ago for a very big example. You had control not only on these sites, but in these spawns. What was the one gap that was given up, though? The middle of the map. That kill came through, it allowed them to go anywhere they wanted to, and it allowed that full push to go ahead and funnel out from vents rather than from that main area that BPC have been just kind of going ahead and blocking off so consistently. So I think so long as you allocate a little more cipherage over there, I think you're kind of looking fine and dandy, and already you can see that coming out. Those trips there, just going ahead, giving that information, but even then still, you're sacrificing a player right there towards Mail who is going to be taking that fight. If they lose it, you're already in a deficit.
Yeah, that's one of those things where if your team is not on the same page here, Dallas, and that breach does not realize their role and responsibility here is just poking for information, you're going to acquiesce in first blood, and you're going to put your team at a disadvantage when you already were struggling in an advantage in the last few rounds. You were stuck in an eco and kind of over-aggressed in an area that wasn't indicative of success for your team or your roster. You got to play a whole lot smarter, make sure everyone's working together here, but the cipherage not paying too much dividends right now for BPC, as it looks like UGA Black are worming their way in through garage instead, as we do see the crossfire being set up again for BPC, just firing through the entranceway through the toxic screen, but it fails. They see the tracers of these rifle shots, and they hit the first shot clean and true. UGA Black will get themselves a first blood down a very important controller player for the side of Bruton Parker, who only has the ones, as they opted not to bring the Viper like you did previously. And you have a great chance to see yourself in through garage, especially with a boost pack and a showstopper, as you give away intel ammo by firing and missing the shots to the race.
Yeah, and this retake really just doesn't surmount much, just because there's not really much there. Already being sure you do have that raise there and present, you do have that cipher, but even then, what is the cipher going to do in a retake to decide, well, finding the kills? Wilhelm's did a great job in that, but I mean, has just found the majority of this top fragger player kills. Just kind of off those initial holds, off those
Last
players
player
swinging into
standing.
you. Everybody else, though, see, it just comes down to the point of playing for these trades or kind of working at it from different angles. And even then still, when Brute and Parker are playing for these trades, when they're working together, that's another situation. That's at least the fourth time I've seen in this game where they have just been playing together, working and just kind of saying, let's go for one, and they're just not there for the second. They're not there to trade off that number. So Wilhelm really just comes down to the point of could clutch this round to some degree if everybody pushes them willy-nilly, but that's not going to be the case. You're looking at a pinch, you're looking at players, you're now waiting, okay, put some utility up, and eventually, inevitably, we'll find that kill. So already in a 4-6 stance, UGA Black not really starting off this rifle sequence of this half all that well, but I mean, they have come from an absolute resurgence, gotten themselves that kind of threshold they need to make sure they find themselves an even half worst case scenario, and Brute and Parker are the ones really kind of playing from behind now. Not by a massive margin, albeit, but still enough to kind of raise some concerns to say, how are we getting just outplayed by a Cypher on the attacking side while ours, it makes sense to be at the top here. But this one right here, they're not setting the guy up to such a degree. We're just losing these gunfights. And that can happen, especially when you see another round like this where it is an eco. You can't freak out too much over it, but still, you got to knock a couple of these out.
I'm very impressed with Trizzy just realizing when there's one, there's probably two, Dallas. Hold down the spray, do the most haphazard spray transfer of 2024, but still secure yourself the kill at the end because you know exactly where they're going to be coming from, directly in front of you through that toxic screen. As Brute and Parker, who went down to that two-player disadvantage, has somehow made themselves back up to an even foray off the back of Caps with this Guardian. That's going to move Spike off to a new location. It's going to force out the Viper Spit here from UGA Black, and it's going to force Brute and Parker now to use a Rolling Thunder where Caps can't get out of heaven. Down they go from the hands aside, forcing Truth to refrag. Still a very big chance here. But everyone lines up for Zach's execute out from Garage Main. And Brute and Parker, they just give it over as they now head over into the last round of this half with UGA Black. A 7-4 split that very well could become double the stat line if they take this one too.
Yes.
A second Viper spit over the course of this half. I mean, well, that was the first round. We really saw Brute and Parker actually pressing that X button for once and kind of getting those presents and that just irrelevance made inside these rounds with these retakes. I think if they invested those a lot earlier, obviously we'd see a lot more presence, see a lot more chances for these rounds to come out as an actual success for them because, well, where you've had some problems, where you've had some issues arising, well, Ultimates are there to help you out, at least make the job a little easier, and we just haven't really seen those used. Those Sky Ults, we could have at least seen 2 of those so far and already seeing a third developing, but that border is still sitting at a yellow. They're still trying to find the right time to pop it, and there's going to be a point where this is the last round and a half, and if you die too early, you're not getting it off at all, and that's exactly what's going on.
70 seconds left in the round, and when both sides have given up some kills, more so now for UGA Black, you've got a lot of worries about where you need to head in towards a site. A site's obviously failed. It can't get in through rope. Where do you got to go? Absolutely elsewhere. Where Wilhelm says, hey, I have a little bit of extra credits. I was not strapped for cash. I'll bring out the boomstick, and I'll use it for not just 1, not just 2, but 3 to secure this BPC round, ending off this first half and putting themselves just 2 rounds away. Now 5-7 splits where Wilhelm drops a 13 bomb to elevate this team further, and still not enough for the other Cypher, as the Cypherage of this game has been the ultimate storyline. Zach's going 16-7 here, Dallas.
Yeah, I mean, just holding things down. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, squeaking through the middle of the map on such a consistent basis, finding so many multi-kills, just surmounting off the back of that. And better yet, what better than that first round to get that done in, to go ahead and surmount that free second. I mean, that is the exact deficit we're looking at, is those 2 rounds. So we get to see Brute and Parker manage to do the same thing or just make sure to push things better. And playing with this double initiator setup, I'm expecting just that, to be a lot more aggressive, to be a lot more concise, and to make a lot more informed decisions, I would say, and what fights they really want to take and how they're going to take them. They got to take them on their own actual ground. They can't just blindly run into these things like we saw them trying to do on these retakes. So when retakes really goes ahead and shows that, okay, this is
enemy down,
the attacking side of the defense, I'm expecting a little more, but that was something that you really just can't switch past.
The hesitation from you, Dallas, the straight pause after witnessing maybe not understanding just how wide the Cypher torso really is, how big the shoulder blades stick out there.
Drop the spike.
Yeah, it's a free one for BPC. The issue is a secondary one swings immediately after in through tower. And it does give UGA Black that man advantage they were hunting for, but now they're gonna have to hunt their way on over to the B site instead, because Spike is on this objective. It's gonna start to go down any moment. And UGA Black, I don't know why they're stacking this A site so heavily when the Spike was not even there whatsoever, but it does make sure that if they go down together, they fight it together, it's going to be even, and the rotate into the B site will also be even and well-timed. It's a great paranoia from Limp, actually catches all three, but they couldn't swing in fast enough as a really well-done escape from UGA Black does allow a save.
Last player standing.
I guess escape backwards, but it doesn't do too much if you still have to swing the wide angle where Limp is. But it's just a gorgeous execute re into the objective for UGA Black, who now are saying, hey, we can retake defensively. Why couldn't you?
No, this is just definitely looking much more like a UGA map. I mean, all things considered, I mean, the way they're playing this map and just kind of their rotations and understanding of the space that needs to be taken, and better yet, where these power positions are. I mean, we're seeing them actually kind of hold down this middle of the map, work off that high ground, make sure they kind of give themselves, even if they're not taking these fights, they're still providing that mini-map coverage for the rest of their teams that are dead to go out and give that information and pass it off to these guys who are going for these lower ground retakes, who are having to cover all these corners and going ahead and knocking all these different variables off for them to make these better fights kind of actually go in their direction and give them a better understanding of where they're going to be taken from. So considering that already winning another pistol round, UGA Black, if they do win this by a significant margin, you can obviously go ahead and give it kudos to those two pistol rounds that are now won. Got to win the secondary off this one, but when that first half wasn't really much of a problem, I very, very, very much doubt that this one's going to kind of really turn it on its head.
There.
Brute and Parker know that the only pistols they have heading into this round, they need to start moving players in quickly. They're doing the old Trojan horse strategy here, Dallas. They put all 4 players up through A lobby and then just leave one behind. Adios, amigos. I'll see you probably next round because you're not going to make it away from here, all things considered. But they put a player there, they leave him there, and that means you can wrap around much later to try to get yourself a kill, which is something that Truth, unfortunately, was failing to do so here. And so is Samo. That is a completely blind Shrooms, blind firing a Spectre while running backwards, dropping through a hatch. But Willow, is he there? Almost, but the second, Truth survives the headshots with plenty of HP as well, and just burns them immediately afterwards. Not enough success stories from Brute and Parker in this round, and the judge that's in the hands of Psy just makes it even worse. It's the 1v4 with Limp having to hit every headshot possible, and even then, it would still be impossible with all 4 rushing you down.
Yeah, just another round. I mean, obviously, UGA Black, they get themselves a start, and they just kind of keep on continuing with that momentum that was handed to them. I mean, Brute and Parker obviously having this first round with the rifles in hand. You're expecting something different out of them, but I just don't know really what's going to be provided that's so different. Obviously, it's the first round of a full kit, the full rifles, not full shields, but we'll see what they can really kind of just whip out, because they need to make sure that this is where it all starts. Where you do see these teams always talking about 9-3 curses and yada yada, but I mean, what it really comes down to is finding yourself that 10th and locking it off. And when you don't really have the guns to back it up, you're not going to see that chokehold that we kind of see so much out of these collegiate teams. Good stance, good pressure, good coverage, I want to say, to start things off. But is your hold just as good? Because that puts you right back on the defense when that spike is down, and we saw how that went.
UGA Black are going to send a wrap around out from tower and in through sight. Tasmanian Tiger off towards security, does make sure there is a player there.
Here.
But now you don't know how many are actually in the screen room. You just know the one player sitting close around this corner, and that's going to force Trizzy to go for it. A snake bite to keep them there. But it's not enough around the corner for Truth. They'll have to go up guns blazing. And that's where the success story for Brute and Parker just rises through. Samo steps up, Caps does the same, and Brute and Parker now have only 1 player left they'll need to contend with. And with that dark cover going outwards, Caps should theoretically know where this player's majority going to be. They don't know enough, and Baze just says, I want to die to this spike. I don't want to give over anything. And they'll give this round at the least to a very successful Brute and Parker side, who wins their success story, Dallas, against SMGs, against the same pistols that UGA were forced to buy up after the one loss they had the round prior. It's kind of an expected story. And now the real game gets started, and you don't even have all 5 rifles. Well, now you do. Make some sacrifices for Truth. They want it.
Yeah, and I mean, even then, I mean, I think Truth can still pretty much manage with the judge in hand. I mean, being that raised, those 2 satchels make that gun just as useful as anything else in the game. But I mean, looking at already winning that first round and having so many players alive, that Britton Parker, they do have some good execs. They do have some good ideas, and they do have some good just ways to hit these sites. But better yet, I want to see their adaptation. We've now seen kind of that first step of getting onto a site working out for them, but sometimes there's a little bit more map that preludes getting onto those sites and hitting those objectives, and whether or not they can actually make those adaptations and get themselves in a good, fortunate circumstance off the back of those could really do something different for them. Already going ahead, knocking off Zach. That top frag is now going to get kind of out of the game. That's a very important facet. But what about the rest of the team? Side can make an exchange there towards Heaven. You know that the player's up there. You're not taking any control. So it lets you know that, okay, all of UGA Black can go ahead and make the rotation for free because everybody else has kind of put themselves in the corner. And, well, this paranoia could literally probably hit them all just in that exact spot.
This is way too one-dimensional of a hold for Bruton Parker. It was way too quick of a retake for UGA Black for their any chance at a hold here. You just weren't able to position for a post plant. Usually, if you're trying to hit this A site, Dallas, you already have a player up towards tower. You're already having a player wrap around in towards screens. They're already positioning there by the time the plant is going down, so that when the plant is down, they don't have to worry about crossing through that space that the defense will now have sight, I would say, visual claim over, not necessarily physical claim over, but they have sight lines on it, which means it's going to be near impossible for you to escape away from there in the first place. None of that was there. Where was the Bruton Parker post plant setup? They're all stacked on site. There. You said it best. A single paranoia would catch all 3. And you cannot have such a one-dimensional hold on an objective. And I think they've realized that. So they're going to have to set up a new post plant on that A site. And they're going to have to try out a new objective as well and test the waters over on B instead, where UGA say, yeah, you may want to test the waters here after the lack of success on A in that last round. But we're going to make it so you've got to go all the way around because Garage, yeah, this is ours, baby. We're putting a Viper's Pit down.
Yeah, we just got to really see how this works and what kind of answers provided here by Bruton Parker to make sure to kind of circumnavigate that Viper's Pit. When I actually just kind of surround that Viper and put him in a situation where no matter where you go, obviously we're going to be there to answer it. And with already a little bit of emphasis towards the B side, that maybe the game plan they're going for, but with the initial pick going over there towards Vince, you know that, okay, more space to work with here. A set going off the back of that, I mean, come on. What else do you have to be given to let you know that A side is going to be a much better option here, because you already have players coming in your direction and giving you that space that you would usually fight on site for. So a quick little go ahead, hop around and get onto that site and be ready for it. But even then, still with such a quick answer, quick rotation coming through from UGA Black, Bruton Parker have already read it and made sure not to go ahead and press the guns too quickly because, well, they're still sitting kind of towards the middle of the map, figuring out where they want to go. But now finally being on this B site, finally putting the spike there, we got to see it go down.
And it did wrap all the way around, and it was a very tumultuous journey to get there. Planted. Way too many players lost, lack of success where they needed it, and they're gonna have to hold on to this one pretty hard. Limp sitting up inside of, well, upper side of Heaven, sitting on walkway. Zach is just around the bend, but that's not the player you necessarily need to be concerned with just yet. It's gonna be Trizzy, I think, would be the primary factor for success on this retake. They had to come in from alley, and you have to watch the tertiary angle of Garage as well, and that they do. Side and Zach bite the dust, and Bruton Parker say, yeah, we can lose on the A side, but we can at least rotate and counteract the ultimate, forcing you to use it and making sure you don't find enough success off the back of it. You're going to have to charge up the other ones, and unfortunately for Bruton Parker, yeah, those ultimates are very close to ready. A single one for Baze, a single one for Shrooms, and only a couple needed for the Neural Theft, which sometimes finds not as much success as you would want, but that is a lot of utility available for UGA Black coming up when they're already so close, 3 rounds away from sending us out of this map.
I mean, this really what it just dwindles down to is if at the UGA Black, I mean, their holds have just been, well, not the best thing in the world, but I mean, they've been a lot more flexible. They've been a lot more adjustable. They've been very, very open to the ideas of where Bruton Parker could be coming from, quite frankly. And even in the retakes are looking a lot more clean. So I think that's a big part of it, is knowing that, well, their presence on the map just seems a little bit more central, seems a little bit more kind of sturdy. And it seems like it just doesn't really have to budge that much just to find relative success. And I think Bruton Parker, well, now being on the attacking side of the map, when they could really find themselves in a retake situation, even then, when they get back down to the actual defensive side of the map, that's where things really start to look bad for them. So another round underway, another rifle round for themselves to work with, but they can't lose too much for free. And if we're talking about for free, there's nothing more free as a gun than a classic to be losing that gunfight to.
0 credits and still takes down a huge credit expenditure of your whole kit, your whole set of armor, and the rifle you just purchased. A hefty cost for something so simple, and well, the sheriff's pretty darn good too. Cost a couple credits, but it's good enough for the one shot up from in heaven around the corner of elbow. And at least we see a Bruton Parker hold on this site that isn't so one-dimensional. Up in the air you float for Trizzy. Shrooms even taking down Caps. There's Limp, like I mentioned, inside lobby, and they secure the final 2. Any variation of a flat hold on site gives Bruton Parker enough of an edge, even with UGA hitting insane shots, catching you off guard, dropping in with great utility, honestly, in an eco round. They still needed that bit of an extra edge, which is shocking for the A site. And Bruton Parker do so by leaving Limp off inside lobby and with the availability to even rotate to tower if required just a little bit later.
Just another great investment of the utility. I mean, as you mentioned, already going ahead, making sure to pop those ults. Not really too much of a concern of whether or not it's actually going to go ahead and land. You already know you have numbers kind of working towards your advantage, but it's just not there. The equilibrium is enough to kind of go ahead and make those calls for free, and everybody else understands the queue. I mean, there's going to be enough rounds considering you already have a 2-round lead, and there's 3 more left to even get there. That UGA is not going to have a problem with ultimates at all. But one thing they are going to have a problem with, at least in this round, is a man count. He's already dropping that Viper. That double controller isn't present, but the From the Shadows is. Looking at the rotation, going ahead, seeing that go back towards spot, and it's sniffed out almost instantaneously. A great play to work off the audible. Don't go for the swing until it's already completed, and it gives Bruton Parker one more free kill. But the thing is, where did that omen come from? Where do you kind of have an idea of where you can be making and facilitating a push? And I think the A site is the right call. You know, Cypher's usually set up on there on a lonesome, and we'll look at one player dying towards Vince. Well, that's technically the A side of the map. So already down to 2 players, while Side could go ahead and just go in an absolute tangent here. The rest of the team has to be there for the rotation. And quite frankly, it's just a one-man army until Sky gets there.
As Wilhelm side maybe trying to get a little bit too big for their britches, and Shrooms all by themselves is forced to pay the price of side over aggressing before the secondary player was there. And Bruton Parker now climb up to that 9th round, finding themselves now 3 in a row, and the attacking side of this map has proven to be very successful now for both teams. UGA coming away on their attacking side with the positive half, and now Bruton Parker looking to do the exact same thing. As we're looking at another eco round, Dallas, coming out for UGA Black. And this one is going to have to be pretty darn aggressive. They had 3 shotguns, or still have 3 shotguns with a Bucky and 2 judges. They had 4 for a moment there. They'll trade off for a Stinger and a Spectre otherwise. The UGA Black are going to play a very in-your-face style here. But all of that will just be circumnavigated for Bruton Parker if they just get this one kill of the Viper of Trizzy and then just take the majority of B side and force you to fight all the way in from bottom side of B up towards heaven, the only area you can come back in from. As with that kill, that may just tell you B side's free, but they're still going to rotate their players through alley, and they're still going to let Wilhelm try to prowl over through A. They're not confirming anything just yet. They want to test the waters.
You really can't blame them. I mean, already so much given up here by UGA. I mean, this early aggression, I mean, looking for these positioning of players. They understand that with these shotguns, they're going to try to go for some weird corners. So they're going to give up and trying to find that early pressure. But with that neural theft going ahead and going out, it gives you all the juice necessary. One rogue kill towards another site lets you know that every single corner you have to check, and it just lets you go ahead and take over the site for free, because what else do they have? Well, it ain't range, so it's not favorable gunfights for them to even kind of go ahead and take these, as you just saw right here with that third player being knocked off. So, well, I think this is pretty easy and pretty telling that, well, this is going to be a 10th round coming out for Bruton Parker. A good stance for them to kind of get themselves back into this. I've seen it over and over and over again. These rounds are looking more like a snowball effect because momentum is playing as an avenue, as a facet for them. But, I mean, can they continue it? Now with so much investments going through, UGA Black off that thrifty we saw 2 rounds ago, to where, while it wasn't successful, it was still expensive nonetheless, where the economy could actually kind of work into their favor so long as they just kind of know how to use it. Because still, they are taking some very, very big bites out of their budget. And I just don't know if they're really playing the long game here. We could literally see this game just lost to them because they just don't have an extra round of guns.
With the scoreline being tied 10-10, Brood and Parker just need to keep the momentum, the snowball effect like you mentioned. But honestly, I don't think it's too hard for UGA Black to realize where Brute and Parker are finding a lot of their success. The stories are coming off these first bloods. It's the inability for them to refrag these initial kills because Brute and Parker, they play so darn slow. It's a blink and you'll miss it style for when the actual execute comes in for that big swing, for that peak for the kill. And they're winning those gunfights because Peeker's advantage, catching them off guard. And Brute and Parker is just a really good team, Dallas. They're going to gun up. They're going to shoot you nearly better than almost any other team here in the SEL. So relying on that's going to be a near impossibility. UGA needs to play out of their minds. And unfortunately, we're just not seeing them play against that style of Brute and Parker's passivity. And they need to meet and match that same way and play so darn heavy for the retakes instead. Because if you don't give Brute and Parker those first bloods, they're going to play too darn slow to get to the site, and that's where you punish them by doing what you did on the A site the first round they took it on this attacking side. Too flat, too one-dimensional. Punish them when you get there too fast so they can't counteract it, and you get all the kills necessary so darn easily, even if you only have SMGs to work with.
Yeah, I mean, just seeing really how this is going to pan out. I mean, it just comes down to, well, obviously first bloods, but everything following comes down to whether or not there's actual some kind of emphasis of space being taken off the back of these kills. You can already see this circumnavigation, this kind of shark in the water situation when it comes around to this B side, getting everybody around it, and it just comes down to feel like UGA just cannot breathe. Well, they have gone ahead and knocked off a couple players. They're finding enough spray through at a BBC to know that obviously they can't hold this thing down. They're making it just difficult to get that spike down. Working out the timer, knowing there's 20 seconds left. You can't find a real stall here. You can't necessarily cut that player off, but maybe you give enough information. Maybe you can bide enough time to get somebody else to come from a different avenue, and that's just not available either, because guess what's there? It's a tripwire. It's a Cypher setup once more through the middle of the map. They are already set up for a retake, where once again, you can go ahead and thank Wilhelm on the attacking side for setting that thing up. It is these Cyphers making a massive difference in this game, being an absolute utter nuisance. But a bigger thing here for BPC is the fact that, well, everybody's kind of woken up. Sure, an off week for them in that first week didn't really show up the best for them to kind of start off this game, but you knew they were going to warm up eventually. And while we knew a second map was inevitable to come around to give them that opportunity, the first map in the second half is just as good, if not better, for them.
I think the crazy thing as well for Wilhelm, for Brute and Parker, is the fact that they're doing this as a Cypher and they're playing it like it's bind. They just leave them off in no man's land of the opposing site, play for peaks that just give the option later to either transition or to wrap around in a post plant. It's perfect. Split is so darn difficult. It's so darn wide, and there's not TPs. There's not angles to work with. And you've got to put those players in those uncomfortable spots, in those positions, like we see here as another Trojan horse strategy comes through. They backpack him all the way over to this A side up inside tower and put them behind box. We're coming into the next 40 seconds, maybe about 30 seconds, when they actually start to make a lot of noise elsewhere, you can start to lap them around, start to move them away. That's where you see UGA. Hey, we know this strategy. We've seen this one, folks. We're going to go elsewhere as truth. Now goes up B Wilhelm Mayo.
Oh
that's
my God,
kills
that's
on
so
B.
unfortunate.
Take A site now if you're Brute and Parker, because they're going to start to rotate, and you're going to have one player actively there to defend this.
That looked like a mid-jump headshot. That was purely just chalked down to pure luck. And, well, I mean, sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. I mean, it happens to the best of us, but already going ahead and sitting at an 11-10 stance for Brute and Parker, that's what really starts to hurt. That's what stings, is knowing that that's the gunfight you need to win to give the number equilibrium to your team, because UGA have not really had themselves too much of a stand so far. This first kind of, or third quarter, better yet, was looking pretty good for them, but now that we're kind of entering these end games, these end stages, once again, we're seeing these retakes. Once they kind of come out to these single avenue pushes, and already, we talked about the paranoia earlier, knocking down 3 players. That's done. Can find both of them still alive. Well, it was a good spray through to come out for one. No flashes here regenerating. No health available for Shrooms off the back of this. And with that spike going off here in just literally a moment's notice, you're going to not really get anything done. I mean, that was just to be expected. It was desperate. It was something. And, well, that's all you can really ask for. Because you're looking at the next round. You're looking at, as I mentioned earlier, a last round where after all these buys that were coming through for them, a desperate attempt to just kind of go ahead and get something going. So we're looking at a lot of Guardians, a single Phantom up against, well, that Rolling Thunder, that Showstopper, and a full kit from every single individual.
When you're at this stage, like when you've not just found yourself at match point for the first game, but you've gotten there off the back of 6-round wins in a row. And UGA Black have seemingly not gotten closer at all, Dallas, throughout this. Yeah, it's been the same story. Sometimes the round comes down to a 1v1. Sometimes it comes down to a 2v2. Sometimes it's a crazy story. It's just a blowout win for Bruton Parker. But the actual middle stages, the actual success stories of the round are still Bruton Parker's success stories. Where's the counter activity, UGA? Where's your own kills? Where is everything to keep them off of sight? Because you are falling short here. As Truth comes in with a Showstopper, gets themselves a kill. A 4v4 now on side. The Rolling Thunder does come through. Just buying time so the BPC can guarantee this spike plant as 3 UGA Bulldogs have to come out from alley alone. You've left 1 inside of a heaven drop, and you have to come in from the tightest angle possible, as everyone knows exactly where you're going to come from, where all of the breach utility is going to be sent. It is an easy cleanup story for Bruton Parker to secure their 13th.
Attackers win
This map on a huge 7-round comeback in the second half and secure themselves the first map series.
I mean, that whole alley retake that we saw by both teams. I mean, if you go back and look at the VOD and look at the retake success percentage of it, I'd say it's no more than 10. It just feels like it never really worked out. That obviously you got to have a power player up towards heaven. And it felt like teams over and over and over again never really wanted to fight for that control, never really wanted to kind of utilize it to some degree. And even then, better yet, in a 3-1 split, I'm thinking obviously you go 2-2. You have more players overlooking because that is a lineup and a half that you're just not expecting. And you got to have a trade for the player up towards heaven because, well, that's where you get all the information from for that retake. If you're not flashing, if you're not trailblazing, if you're not getting something there to work with. And it just seemed like in a later stage of the round, that's exactly the case. You got nothing to work with but their own 2 eyes. And well, there's 4 sets of them totaling an 8. So there's a lot there, but when they get knocked off, you can knock out 2 at a time. So now seeing that we're going over the sunset, this map is a lot more aggressive, a lot more kind of smaller compared to what your typical Ascent provides, but it does feel still like Ascent in some degree. Easy to rotate across the map, easy to go anywhere, a lot of middle presence. While the retakes don't give you nearly as much, they do have a lot more kind of avenues to come at it from. So it's reminiscent of Split, as I always mention, and Ascent. It kind of feels like the love child between those two, but with no verticality, which sounds a lot better. Thing is, I don't think UGA are going to have themselves that kind of leniency early on like we saw in this map because, well, it felt like, once again, Bruton Parker was warming up. Wasn't really hitting all cylinders. But now that we're at that point where they were able to just kind of go in an absolute tear, momentum does carry on from not only halves, but maps. And we could see an exactly replication of that.
And you could see the evolution of Bruton Parker throughout that second half. Yes, this map tends to be predominated by one side over the other, and that in the case here was attacking side, which is not shocking. I think that's statistically the one that's more likely to be dominated over the other. But they were playing kind of poor at the beginning of that second half, right? I mean, they didn't have a really good, they had a very flat, one-dimensional hold in a post-plant scenario, right? And they had the time to rotate out. They just decided all 5 players needed to be on the site when they were planting for some reason, and didn't really move from there. They were running into these problems and even running into other problems when they try to go to the to the B side and try to wrap around elsewhere. And they're like, okay, well, now we have to one-dimensionally escape out towards heaven. How do we do this? And they've got to go gun up in every engagement. You could see their game plan kind of wave through like a sine wave and then evolve into just this straight, positive stock graph of just getting free wins and getting good success stories just trickling in for them to close out for the 7-round wins in a row they needed to just dominate UGA towards the closure of that game and in that half in general. That is going to be the most important thing. You've let BPC heat up UGA. The Bulldogs, you would think a Bulldog could be a pretty scary animal when they're also cute and cuddly, but they can be a pretty scary animal if they bite. I don't know what the mascot here for Bruton Parker is, but it's biting just as hard. It's biting pretty darn hard. Whatever it is, you're going to be seeing it in your nightmares tonight because you've got to figure out what went wrong in this second map, and y'all couldn't even figure it out during the map. Let's hope this 5-minute break that we're about to head into will do the same. Don't go anywhere. I'll be right back with the next map. Let's see if this one we closed out in 2. A 13-10 game that's capped off with a 7-round spree to find closure for Bruton Parker College. A success story that's not too common to see, but on Split, it's all too common to see. Thankfully, we don't get to go back there. Hopefully not ever again for the rest of SCL, because man, that map is so darn awkward, it feels like Dallas. But we've got Sunset, another pretty awkward map here, where we've seen a bit too many Yorus on this map coming into the SCL side of playoffs. And we haven't seen this map in about 3 weeks, which means we haven't seen Yoru here. And I'm so darn glad, because the team that played Yoru here got knocked out 3 weeks ago.
Are you confusing this map with Bind?
No,
I do not see that many Yorus
we had Sunset here 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, but we don't see that much
ago.
Sunset. A.
No, that's
and
the
even
thing.
then,
We
if
saw
we do
Sunset
see
twice,
Sunset that much,
and both of them had Yoru.
Okay, well, seeing Sunset in other leagues, and I'm sure you could probably attest to this.
That's the thing. It's an SCL thing. Why does SCL have Yoru on Sunset? That's what I'm confused about. We're giving a bad name right now, man.
The outlier I could definitely go ahead and kind of keep eyes on is go ahead and take a look at both of those initiators. No Gecko, no Sky. It's just nothing but Sova and Fade, which is interesting to say the least. The breach is expected. I mean, there's so many corners of this map, just like Split, to where it just makes sense to go ahead and bring this thing out. That's where I draw the kind of line from Split to this map and kind of mention it as kind of that whole love child between Ascent and Split, because of just how easy it is to rotate, how small it is, and kind of how uniform it is. But even then more so, it feels like there's a lot more angles here than there is on Ascent, because that map is very wide open. But all things considered, already the Fade coming out, something that I just don't see anywhere here for the longest time, which I'm really kind of happy to see, because Fade presents a lot inside of a map, but we don't see her as often as I feel like we really should. But that's also because, well, keep in mind, like, Lotus is out of the game at this point. Or no, it's not Lotus. They're all dead. Sorry, we have no maps anymore. Fracture and Pearl. Those are two maps that are not here right now. And Pearl is what I was thinking of.
They're all dead. Riot has kill. No chance left. It is what it is. Hopefully they get a slight change as well when they eventually do come back, so we have something new to kind of highlight on the map, especially Fracture. I know that one's getting some adjustments. Around the corner, inside and through Saul, you've got a pretty dangerous angle for Bruton Parker to try to aggress in towards on this attacking round. And since it's still a pistol, you got to go gun up when you swing. It's two very successful kills coming out here for UGA Black on this execute away from sight. And Bruton Parker are just at a loss here. They can't go to A. If they try to rotate there in time, UGA Black will basically meet them at the objective at the same exact moment. And even though you have Wilhelm finding a kill, you've got to get there a lot quicker. And it's Sambo downing the last two low HP players, and Zach didn't finish. This is one-shot headshot territory, and Zach is aware of that. Even if they have 100 HP, it's the game for Samo to win, as they both lap just inches from each other.
No way!
Samo! Bruton Parker steal round one out of nowhere.
So close to get so far, even then still classic enough to go ahead and get the job done there. But nonetheless, a lot of money handed out off the back of that one. I mean, being on the attacking side of the map and not even getting the extra 300 credits for everybody else off the back of that spike plant. Still having enough for two of those players to opt in for a rifle if they did so feel like it. But they're not going for it. They're going to get it, and they're finding themselves, well, the 3 Spectres. Not even a Bulldog, oddly enough. But Samo buying that Vandal. If you're confident enough, just rock with it, buddy.
Why not?
Go ahead, yeah. Why? Just reward yourself for those efforts. Make sure to kind of go ahead and really just drive this one home. And get an early Hunter's Fury. Why not? Give him the spike. Just go ahead. Give the guy all the ult points he needs.
Ooh, honestly, kind of close shots there from base, but not close enough. Nothing really hitting. No dice coming out for UGA Black. Bruton Parker now have control over this A side. Stack themselves in through elbow. And honestly, this A-side elbow is one of my favorite locations of pursuit for any map in the game of Valorant. And you've got UGA Black, who have not found any success defensively on that, and are even trying to do a pretty big map control in through mid with the wraparound, knowing they're at that pistol disadvantage, because this is an eco round against the SMGs against Bruton Parker in their bonus. They still don't come away with too much to their name. Aside with the Sheriff, maybe hoping for an exit frag, maybe hoping for something to cook up in the final few moments. Maybe get revenge here against Samo, who is just around this corner and is taking a tiny tick of damage. Aside will unfortunately be incapable of finding the kill, and Samo closes off round one and closes off round 2 to give Bruton Parker the wins.
more than they
I mean, obviously expected to win another round here back to back. I mean, both these teams, this is not something we've seen being broke so far. At least every single pistol round thus far in this game is going ahead and kind of finding a weird 1-1 or maybe a 1-2 kind of split. So already opening up kind of very, very standard for both these teams,
here.
which is what I like to see. I at least like to see these early rounds kind of go ahead and just pan out predictably, and then just see the full rifle rounds go out afterwards. But obviously, both teams are looking to go ahead and shut down those pistol rounds or just get the second and then the third after. Well, if you're going to find that third here for Bruton Park, it all comes down to that hero gun that is within your grasp. That gate already being closed off fairly early on, that's going to give you enough information. No players are pushing it. You still got a tripwire there. And keep in mind, the gun's in hand now. They can easily just mow down that hallway if they feel like it. So, yeah, go ahead and keep your eyes on that. Don't really freak out too much. Just sit back, sit tight, and, well, if you're UGA Black, just let them come right all to you.
Bruton Parker having broken down the door, connecting in through stall. We'll have to, or in through market, I should theoretically say. We'll have to think a little bit more about when they're going to push in from, how they're going to push in from, maybe what the next idea will be defensively. Zach doesn't have the best spot to just continue to stand here. There will be utility sent out from Bruton Parker, and majority of that's going to come in from B main, from out behind the wall. The whole team now cascades out towards site. Smokes get set up in 2 locations, one in outer hall, one off towards Boba entrance, or Boba exit here for UGA Black. Bruton Parker will have really no contention on site, Dallas, to keep them away from the point. No plant, they'll not set up in a post plant, and they'll send Caps into hell, and he'll find 2 more before returning. What is that, Caps? A sheriff and a sheriff alone in a rifle round for UGA Black with a 3rd round possible here? This is a dismantling of the UGA attempt out through Boba. What is going on in Paradise? UGA forced to retreat.
I mean, just looking to see really what can be managed here. I mean, Bruton Parker just running absolutely through when it comes around to just these gunfights. Winning over and over and over again, knowing these kind of circumstances, knowing the lineups that are going to work for him, just ideally, well, you know that A site's a lot closer, so it's much easier to hit those shots, and especially with the sheriff in hand even, you can make sure to manage to get those fights appropriately. So already looking to see what UGA Black has done. They've accumulated an ultimate. That's good for them, but not a round. And that's really what's the most important thing, is because still you see a massive deficit in terms of this money, and Bruton Parker winning that 3rd, as I mentioned, that's going to be that breaking point. That's going to be that boiling point, because this is final when we really break that pattern and just see them able to just run.
Sonar bolt up and through alley, and Zach will clear that away. And honestly, with the information that you typically would want off of that, try to listen to the gun. Smart idea to fire at it with the pistol instead. It's a good bait. Kind of sings out, hey, they only have pistols. There won't be an SMG. There won't be anything a little bit bigger in the hands of UGA Black. Bruton Parker, they want that to be true. They start to go forward. Everyone out through B main, no one in through markets. And they have to go in fast as possible. Zach gets through unseen as well and was on the cam. And while it does get the spike planter, who just barely got it down, removed from the equation, it's still not enough for UGA Black to truly say they've got a chance to return back into this round, as both players that were alive, now only one, are trying to come in through B main, and it's just Baza left. What can you possibly do? I'm not sure Baza really has the chance to do anything here at Dallas. You just got to sit back and pray for an exit frag.
I mean, that's all you really can do. I mean, obviously with this stinger in hand, you could see an absolute just run through of a lot of players. I mean, this stinger can come out of absolutely nowhere, but I mean, considering that already you do see that stinger in hand, and well, that everybody else is rotating somewhere else, you're dying to the spike. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. Go ahead, get that extra tick. Just don't hand it over, more importantly, and we'll just make sure to manage that money for the next round, because UGA Black, keep in mind, in that last map, they didn't even get themselves a last round on that match point. They were working with an eco, and, well, you don't want to have that happen once more.
Right now, Bruton Parker just driving themselves forward. Nothing that UGA Black are able to do about it when it comes to round 1, round 2, and when they had the best theoretical chance possible in round 3, they fell to the player that is Zach, who, sorry, not Zach, sorry, Caps, the opposing Bruton Parker's breach here. They fell to Caps so effectively with 2 sheriff shots and then a Vandal one to conclude the round results. That it's just been a high for Bruton Parker that cannot be understated. It's truth out the corner. It's a 2v1 that maybe shouldn't have gone their way, but they get away with the 1-for-1, which is good enough for Bruton Parker. That tells them, they no longer have to worry about that Cypher, who was a pretty big threat when it comes to information. We can now start to poke off towards any site we want. We can take Alley if we wanted to. And we just got to kind of play that slow game we did on the previous map of Split and say, hey, we just need to play a long, methodical play style, force them to question things, get that first blood, the not actual first blood, but as fancy of one as you can get of a first blood here after the initial first blood retreated from both sides, to get that advantage and then sing yourself off in towards a site.
Well, I mean, considering that already in a 4v4 situation, this is where the turning really starts to take its turn. I mean, considering that you already see these players working to get themselves onto a site. This map is so small, you can really just make the rotations whenever you feel like it. It just comes down to holding these defaults. While you could have seen a little bit of emphasis over towards today's side, that tripwire is still there. That makes a very easy cue to kind of go right towards the middle of the map to some degree, knowing especially that a spike is down. Then just shift that attention, cover the mid, have a player hold B. Have everybody eventually make their way over towards B and just completely hold things down. And that's how UGA were able to execute that round. Not really just kind of flex themselves out too much. Not really stressing over a lot. You just need to get sure that, well, you're hitting those initial shots. And even if you do find a trade, that you have a player very quickly able to manage to get themselves in place to make sure to get the next.
I think map control is a pretty big thing for Bruton Parker right now, but I feel like so much of their map control has come off of this B site, which, let's be honest here, for this map, Dallas, when is that not the case? A site is so few hits, so few and far between for most teams that I can't imagine that we'd see Bruton Parker opt to go there majority of the time. They'd rather just continue to mine and tick away at that B side, looking like a Captain Sprackles video. I mean, this can't be the go-to strategy. They're starting to stack up 3 players there. They're starting to put more inside alley to try to keep them off guard. You've got to start hitting this ace side, and I think they're realizing that. They've got a transition here. You've got a player inside elbow with an operator, though. You've seen that they've got something heavy-handed over here. Do you keep going? And I think you do. You have to put the smokes, though. You have to throw a paint shell to keep that raise back. And that's why you also have a sonar bolt there as well. They're gone from elbow. But where will they be? And can you counteract it?
Well, we've seen already that all these players are looking to culminate onto a site and look to get these kills, and you can see that, well, UGA Black is coming in on top very successfully with it. Going ahead, diminishing these numbers, getting into a 1-to-1-to-1, and even then, off the back of that, not even really stressing the rest of the fight that will follow because, well, momentum was going in their direction. But with Bruton Park able to go ahead and finally find at least maybe something off the back of this, well, here comes the Rolling Thunder. Can't really play it, can't really get much done off of it because you're just sitting there stunned. And especially with that spike being back towards that hallway, well, you're just nothing but a lineup at this point, quite frankly. I mean, the aftershock can come out, the haunt can come through the tether, no matter what, but still, somehow, Wilhelm is living. Nobody's pushing, and with 7 seconds remaining, it makes sense. Just back up. Don't really stress this round too much. Don't give over more than necessary unless the swing comes through.
Time is already running out. Wilhelm just trying to piece something together. Interesting testing of the crouch key there. Not sure why you're doing that when you're down 2 rounds, but it's all right. We'll figure it out from this point onwards. Bruton Parker, they still have credits. They still have the economic, I would say, advantage because they're still riding off the boon that came from the 4-round spree. They have not yet hit 2008. There is not a downward spiral of the economy, and the housing market has not yet bubbled. The Randalls are still coming in galore, and UGA Black, I feel like they still feel confident. They've got the operator. They're able to recollect it. Trizzy's got 5,200 credits. We're going to be looking at a tried and true, just absolute game of Valorant for the next 3, if not 4 rounds, if they trade in wins. But that means Bruton Parker has to stop giving away these first bloods. And that ace site, when you know that Trizzy is there and you know the operator is there because it was guaranteed to be collected, you can't peek that. You've got to try to go in from defender side. You got to try to go all the way up through street, all the way in through alley, and there was just no real attempt from Bruton Parker, which gives them a freebie, a big information freebie as well for your Cypher to the opposing side.
Well, I mean, already see in the middle of the map and how things have gone down there. I mean, you saw that, well, a player was dying back towards spawn. That creates a lot of hesitancy for everybody else over on the A side of the map. Not really wanting to cue those rotates just yet. Going ahead and delaying the inevitable because you know that PvP are going to be pushing this B side. But really, what's it come down to? can these players create the delay? Because Zach is here, knows the spike is going
One
down,
enemy
as long as
remaining.
this guy at least gets his
Spike
one,
down
that's all
B.
that really matters. This is a doable situation, especially considering that Raze has the full HP to work with, but do you have the information? Do you have the idea? You're going to have the audible to let you know that,
30
well, a
seconds
player's
left.
out now here
Spike
for a
planted.
solitary second, and that's exactly where they're coming from, but you didn't take the trade at the time, and, well, now you got a boombot coming after you. You got another player over towards this angle. You got to swing a 1-by-1. You don't know if anybody's back towards spawn, and while you did find a crazy spray onto at least one mid-jump, the second one just wasn't going to be handed to you as easy.
16 HP. This is another round where we see it be a 1 bullet difference, Dallas. It's so darn close. And the double swing out from Bruton Parker, that's what you want to see in this scenario. But at the same time, it's one of those things where you can double swing out, but if you're staying right behind each other, they're just going to not even have to move their mouse, move the crosshair to be able to find the kill at the end of it. Thankfully, they get away with it. 16 HP and a dream remaining, and Bruton Parker now up to 5, where they can continue to hold on to the credits, continue to hold on to some sort of an advantage. UGA, they bought another operator while one player has a stinger. I don't know where they got their advice from in terms of market management, but I need to talk to their stock portfolios because this is a crazy investment and it's not panning out. Down goes Trizzy. Everyone from UGA Black has seen red in some regard except for your breach. And finally, Zach does it, but the right way, a kill instead of falling themselves.
I mean, just over and over again, we're mentioning, I mean, the
player
fact
standing.
that Bruton Parker, they found themselves an outstanding start, and UGA Black on these retakes, I mean, they're trying. I mean, really, that's what it comes down to, is that UGA is giving their best attempt, but sometimes they just don't have all the utility there. Sometimes they don't have the right weaponry. Sometimes they don't have the right positioning. It feels like there's this kind of holy trifecta that comes into really facilitating a good retake, and it always feels like they're missing one of those things in every single one of these times. And you kind of have to lean it into that 3-0 start. I mean, sure, it's 4-0, but I mean, just the 3-0 is what really matters. That third round is where it really hits, knowing that, well, okay, afterwards we just don't have much of a buy. And it just kind of goes in that constant recycling motion that just over and over and over again. It's something just feels like it's not really connecting. So they just got to go ahead. I think taking the time out at some point during this half would have done them a lot of good, but already going ahead and surmounting a first blood here and at least creating somewhat of a denial and maybe having a gun to pick up could just work absolute miracles for them, at least this round so far. But a showstopper coming through, finding at least one, that's
Spike
really
down
big.
A.
And especially if it got some more damage, but it barely went ahead and touched home.
It's one of these scenarios where it's such a huge turning point possible for the side here of UGA Black, and it just didn't get enough. And was this, you know, a year back, the Ray Showstopper would have killed absolutely everyone on the whole team, no matter their location. You know, a 32 kill streak in Call of Duty just dropped the Moab, but now it doesn't feel like it has that same distance, and you know, even a little bit of damage, you got to be right on it when you hit, and that's just not really the luxury they were given. Bruton Parker, though, off the back of Wilhelm, do even the odds. They obviously have that advantage for the time being, but it doesn't last for too much longer. FaZe on the flank gets Wilhelm and forces now Samo to have to think twice about where they position. Do you know? Limp! Turn around! What are you both doing? This is not a trigger discipline. This isn't the cool thing we just saw last map, Dallas. This is just embarrassing for our players. This isn't a cool trigger discipline moment. This is sad. Now they have to both hold the exact same angle. And UGA are just swinging into
Last
it darn
player
swiftly.
standing.
Limp finally gets the kill off towards side way later than it should have
One
been from
enemy
either
remaining.
player. As FaZe now in a 1v1, just
Bring
by
around
time,
the
just hold
Rosie.
this. It's just a matter of playing for contention. There it is, Samo. Thank you. As Bruton Parker, 7-round wins now. And there's just nothing going defensively for UGA Black, which is kind of big except for the map, but still. Finally also seeing Bruton Parker dominate the A side just as they did the B.
I mean, just seeing how we got Bruton Parker working this map. I mean, obviously that last round was just kind of a massive turn on his head all over the place, quite frankly. I mean, UGA Black, that was another round where you really can't blame them for making the investments in the ultimate. It was just like the eco that we saw on Split, to where you find the numbers, they reach equilibrium, and consider the guns you got to work with, you're saying, honestly, this is fine. I mean, a first blood, then I can just pop the showstopper, find a second, and everybody else is going back and forth. We just play numbers at that point, quite frankly, and just make sure to kind of at least get our ones after that. Work 2 players to get 1 kill. You know, you still got the player allocation to get it done, but even then, UGA just really couldn't squeeze it out. But looking at the rest of the team, seeing what's getting managed here, seeing how they're going to play out this round. This is where it really matters. And already they're dropping a player during it. So I'm seeing them spread out. I'm seeing them kind of wanting to go for something. I'm seeing them kind of just urging themselves to get some kind of presence, to get some kind of damage off. But I don't think they're really finding these opportunities. If you see Faye, go ahead and swing up right now. You get 2, 3 free kills, but it's just only one because it's a little slow, and you're afraid to go ahead and take these fights. But regardless, numbers are still playing in your favor. You're still getting all of the necessary kills, and this is finally what's going to seem like a third round to be that bar minimum they have to reach on a per half basis.
What a shot from Shrooms there. Just control over market being just such a vice grip scenario for UGA Black. And for so many of these round styles where it seems like UGA are struggling to be the first gun up at a lot of these engagements, struggling to be the first gun to fire, whether or not you follow the ideation of old school Star Wars with Han Solo firing first or second, or new school where they change it and flip it for some reason and reverse it. It doesn't matter. They couldn't do it. They couldn't get the kills back because Brute and Parker were beating them to the trigger pull and getting the kills first. That round was total domination. UGA didn't even give a sliver, a pixel to the side of Brute and Parker before their head was cut cleanly off their shoulders. That's what you need to see from UGA Black if they want a chance to not even just take this map, Dallas, but take the series still against the second seed Brute and Parker, who is well deserved of this position in this league and is about to very well send themselves out of this if UGA don't find that perfect game they need to not just close out this half to get close, to close out the second half and force that third map to come through.
7-5, best case scenario for UGA Black, worst case for VPC. So I mean, things aren't really going to be all that bad here. I think honestly that's a doable half to ask for out of UGA, especially considering that last round. So you got at least maybe one of these rounds to work with. But it really comes down to, once again, have you learned anything? I think honestly, giving up first bloods necessarily for free, that was something they've already learned. I don't know why I almost went back for spawn when you had your fade checking that, because now you get timing and now there's everybody on site.
It's unfortunate. It's just, you have to have so much faith in your team to hold that angle, and I don't know why some sort of misconception is being made, but it doesn't matter. It's a man disadvantage now for the side of UGA Black, but you still have the concern that not everyone has the perfect weapon for Brute and Parker, and they're sending out utility. What a rolling thunder from BPC as well, giving Wilhelm a freebie off towards Shrooms. That's an initiator for the side of UGA Black that's no longer available, and Brute and Parker can just sit back in these elbow positions farther back inside of lobby and just dominate these apex fronts where it bulges so consistently against UGA Black's any sort of congestion. It's in your face. It's very candid. What are you to do? Get the kills first. Don't get Valorant timing. Play further forward if you have to. Because remember that A site was dominated by UGA Black when they put Trizzy with the operator just outside of Elbow, when they put them off towards A lobby, when they put them for the early peak for the first bloods. The lack of that right now and the passivity from UGA, it's not the answer for Brute Parker on this map. It was for Split. Stop bringing it back here.
I never really want to argue on camera, but I really can't back that one up too much, quite frankly. That's where we saw the majority of these deaths coming through more times than not is when they play.
That's where we saw the majority of their first bloods too.
But at least you had the chance for an exchange. We're seeing so many lurks, so many plays from Brute and Parker come up where they just can overextend a singular player and find results off of it. It happened in Split. It happened here. I think just going ahead and paying attention to the angles. If you're allocated something, don't budge it. I would literally rather you be completely circumnavigated and shot in the back of the head and have this as an excuse rather than I just wasn't watching it. I looked away for a second or I lost that gunfight. It just, you got to understand what's available here. And already when you don't understand that there are players back towards this market area of the map and you have a player mid-ultimate, can't even fire back, and somebody else getting picked off, it leaves UGA Black once more around where they just really can't find an answer on that retake. So while the worst of it may be behind us, they don't have to worry about retakes anymore. They do have to worry about getting themselves on the site and once again winning these initial fights, because if you lose that first, well, it's going to be a domino effect, and everybody afterwards, especially once you get these fully auto guns, they're just going to be lined up. They're just honestly going to be nothing but collateral.
Now you have to be aggressive if you're UGA. It's not a matter of holding your angle. It's not a matter of turning the wrong way at the wrong time. You've got to take a site. And you've got to find a 6-round comeback to tie the margin for Bruton Parker and keep them away from just 4 simple round wins, 2 of which could be the easiest thing for them if they just take the pistol and find the bonus afterwards. They're going to stack up to a site that, unfortunately for them, has the majority of Bruton Parker's defense now currently stacked in upon as the utility starts to come out, however limited that may be for an average pistol round. They almost get some good damage off the back of that breach utility as well, as both the rupture and stun come in. And Limp has the classic, wants the shots to go forward, and it's a bloodbath for BPC.
Yep.
Everyone knows where they are, and UGA just lambs to the slaughter as it's only side remaining, side-eyeing the team, going, where are you guys? 4 of you were there, and I'm somehow the only one left standing.
Still doable. It is a pistol round. Problem is your positioning. You're in the middle of the map. You got so many angles to watch. It's not just 2 things flicking back and forth. It is literally everywhere you're having to keep your eyes on, and already on the other side of middle, just waiting for you, eventually lining up and swinging into it. Well, there you go. Wilhelm closing things off there. 10th round coming up for Bruton Parker, and a closer step towards the end, quite frankly. UGA Black, they understand the dire circumstances that is this round, and they're going ahead and forcing up for it. I can't blame them, but I gotta see, when you're running these stingers, the unfortunate reality is you gotta also just press the W key off the back of it. And I'm curious to whether that kind of just creates an absolute domino, a complete just wave of death on their side, or whether or not they can actually kind of push through and just overwhelm these guys on B side, which is early Raise peak is going to let them know exactly what's going on.
Because he has to play really smart here, and what a shot from Shrooms! As every player firing in tandem, there's no surviving that for Bruton Parker. And now that man advantage can help you just dive in towards sight, and you've got to do so quickly. Limp's got that cutoff angle in through market, and both Samo and Caps are dominating the backside of this B objective on the opposing side of Pillar. That spike down in no man's land. Trizzy knows that a paint shell could flush them out of market, and it's where Wilhelm could have gone crazy, but it won't matter. The paint shells finally detonate, and you see a UGA Black round win come forward to break the mold, to stray off from Bruton Parker getting the 11th round win and give UGA a shot.
I mean, hey, if there's any time to do it, that round was definitely it. Sure, you don't carry over very much. Sure, the guns aren't kind of surmounting. The economy isn't just kind of the best looking thing in the world, but still, it's more than Bruton Parker, and that's all that matters. You take the small victories where you can. You start to add those things up over the course of the game, and you get yourself at least some level of relativity, of some kind of stance inside this matchup. And I think, honestly, they're finding themselves a pretty good start. But also, how aggressive, how close are BPC going to be playing? Because they have a 6-round gap between them and UGA Black. So if they get an eco round or 2 in the meantime, they got plenty of space. They have plenty of insurance underneath them to kind of just go ahead and take the shots and at least give it their best chance. All willy-nilly, because worst case scenario, 6 goes down to 5.
Caps get some nice shots off towards Trizzy, and maybe that would be the end of it when Trizzy decides to re-swing the rifle in their hand, but that's not going to be the case. That's a man advantage for Bruton Parker. You were talking about squeaking an eco round. This could be it. And there's limited utility, though still utility available for UGA Black because the breach is up and alive. But the information now is so darn heavy and stacked for Bruton Parker off a highly successful recon bolt. But Zach lines him up and tears him down. It's just Limp. Prowl around the corner, force the line of sight elsewhere. What can you do? Throw the dark cover. Lay off to the side. You have to stick this to the half.
No way.
The shot they can't. Bruton Parker steal this one from UGA and reach 11.
It's just small things here, man. Every time for UGA, it's just these small gaps. It's these small gaps, these small mistakes, things that to where everything seems to be going their way. Everything looks doable. They either have man advantage, or they got, better guns, or they have just already everything lined up for them. And as I mentioned, we already saw that other half where things just weren't really playing all that well, where they had that constant cycle of one thing not going their way. And problem is, on this half, just that gap alone at any point in time is going to be the difference between, well, your entire season being over and, well, at least being able to go to a third match. You just can't let that happen. You've got to push that spike if you get to that point. You got to get out in the open. you got to concern yourself. You got to at least put your life on the line.
Slow prowl in for the side here of UGA Black. Just trying to make as little noise as possible on the approach in towards site. And that's where you'll see the two defending players on the A site now wrap around in through attacker spawn and look to catch them off guard. Samo, down goes side. Big success story. The paint shells were the only thing necessary to take down Samo, but Trizzy ensures that the Boba player will not be lasting there much longer. And UGA Black, off the back of finding really good 3 kills in a row to sing a success story. Now we just have to hunt for a little bit more, and they get a little bit closer to even the odds with a great flick by Truth. The paint shell goes forward. Is that enough to kill Zach? It will be! And the game's now even. Bays the wild swing from right side of pillar. Down goes their doppelganger of Limp. No clue where everyone may be, and thankfully, if you get one, the second can't make it. Bays finishing off the final 2 players on the side of Bruton Parker, keeping UGA alive.
I mean, just hero place. Here we go. We're asking at least every single player to get one at this point. And I mean, this game looks so easy. So easy. And even then, I mean, we're just asking each player to have their own separate instance. It doesn't have to be consecutive. It doesn't have to go round after round after round. A round like this, you got full guns in everybody. Team Ace would be more than enough to ask for here. Just go ahead, get the kills that you're, being requested to get, and then everybody shouldn't really have a problem. Win your ones, or just kind of, even then, you have the luxury of information on our side. Just get on site, choose one and go, and obviously B is going to be a much better option.
He comes forward. Caps gets a nice kill with a ghost, but it will not matter. UGA Black are dominating with the rifles at play. Bruton Parker, the rotate in on that A side, it's not going to matter. You just play in for the final 10 seconds. You just sit back and static. You try to pull off a near miracle. The only player that has been felled on that side is too deep into sight, and I guarantee that rifle's been collected and thrown back even further, just to make sure there is no chance that some miracle could happen for Bruton Parker here. You don't even really need to play too much, as both sides have pretty much every ultimate possibly available. All 5 for Bruton Parker. 4 out of 5 for UGA Black. And it's only the From the Shadows that still remains, as a shock dart could take down Trizzy here. Unfortunately, set with a bounce instead. Paint shell will force Truth off, but a paint shell gets the kill otherwise. What in the world's going on here? I don't think there's time, but my goodness, did they make it expensive for the side here of UGA Black.
A lot of guns ripped out. I mean, then again, it comes down to the actual side hold. And I think for UGA Black, that's going to be a note that they got to take mentally going forward, because even then, I mean, with all the guns that was ripped out from them, this round is very doable considering all the ultimates at hand. But I mean, that's a luxury both sides can afford, quite frankly. Where usually you would see that by this point, Bruton Parker would have probably invested a little bit more in that last round just to make sure to kind of get those numbers playing in their favor and get that spike defusal and make it a lot more tense. Or, something of a different caliber where you go ahead and get those guns and you pop it as just kind of assist somebody else, even if there is some sense of equilibrium. But UJ Black, in this round alone, even then after that success the last one gave them, they still look like they're going to be playing from behind right here.
Sleep, brother. Oh my goodness. You're just waiting for something to cook up on the other side of the Hunter's Fury, and Samo finally finds targets. This time to do so. Bays inside now. The only ones left for UGA Black, and they made quick work on not just 2 but 3 actually. As Bruton Parker are seemingly just tunnel visioning in. This is a trickle effect, Alice. We talked about the snowball effect you see so often in Valorant, and was a concern obviously for our previous map of Split, and it looks like it could have been an even bigger comeback to contention here if it wasn't for Samo. 4 kills in this round, single-handedly it seems, putting Bruton Parker, elevating them above the competition, as they're dropping a 22-9 in this game. Not even counting the skills and success they had on the previous map. Bruton Parker are really riding off the Sova success story here.
I mean, just putting an absolute punctuation on this game, at least to some degree. I mean, shutting that down, 4K off the back of it, 2 of it allotted immediately to the Hunter's Fury, and a little bit of setup from the rest of the team off the back of a Rolling Thunder. But, I mean, who cares, right? You're at that point in the game where you're so late in it now where it just quite frankly doesn't even matter. You're investing what you can. You got a lot of rounds behind you, even if it does go to theoretical waste. But well, this one right here can't be that same exact place. It is an investment here for UGA. It is a side push that is having to come through from it, and they have done exactly that. Once more around where you don't see the buys fully coming through for them, they still manage to make it look pretty darn good.
From up and above, Limp's got the distance. Sees Bays there as well. The neural theft will get some intel. And I really wanted that fight. I don't blame him. If you can get that kill, you can do anything. It's now Wilhelm, the only one remaining. We saw miracles occur for them last game on the map of Splits. But you're now asking them to come into a 1v3 with nigh impossible odds, and Zach just sneaking themselves through. They were completely unknown. And there wasn't a cheeky shoulder to see like we had that one round inside tower on Splits. This one was a complete blind around that corner. Great success for UGA Black with the limited weapons they had. And Bruton Parker are now forced to say, yep, we now have limited weapons. This is an eco for us. Thankfully, we still have 5 rounds of wiggle room that we can kind of make mistakes on before we got to start kicking it into high gear to keep them off of OT.
Even then swapping things around, I mean, bringing this to a full circle moment where you see the Bruton Parker, I mean, no matter what, the end's going to be good for him. Even regardless, I mean, if it goes to a third map, that's where things are obviously stressful. But I mean, no matter what, it's either a thrifty and you're hooting and hollering off the back of it, or it's your legitimate round win and you're like, all right, thank goodness we finally got there, boys. But already, things not looking like the hottest start. When you consider that, well, that nightfall comes out, players get knocked off, you see at least sort of a trade come through, and still it is a 3v3, and UGA are still losing players just to get on site against a bunch of classics and sheriffs. So, while interesting, nonetheless, for UGA here, Bruton Parker, I mean, this is one of these teams where this is the only team actually I've ever seen to go ahead and get that many successful classic kills on eco rounds of all things. So where literally anything you put in their hands looks like it could be a threat.
Yeah, and this is a team where if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile and they strike that for 2. Just a 1v1. Caps hiding around an elbow. Bays knows they're there though, and if we had seen a little bit more from Samo on the other end, maybe just not being caught so open, they needed that rifle, don't blame them at all, but Bays, perfect, keeping calm in the face of danger, but man, what a round for Bruton Parker. Just always being so consistently good, so consistently successful, even if they only have classics to their name. How is every round ending in a 1v1, a 1v2, a 3v1 that turns into a 1v1? What is going on this map for Bruton Parker that's allowing them to just derive these random arbitrary success lines that somehow make the game very manageable? As Wilhelm will be forced to fall back and elbow. Just barely, the trap wire still stays. They line it up and they burn down Tracy. Great first blood for Bruton Parker.
And even then, I mean, considering the UGA Black have already lost so many players, at least trying to go ahead and find themselves a successful push on these sites, that is what you need, at least out of somebody, is to trade off that number. And not only just to do that, but to alleviate the attention somewhere else. The entirety of the team needs to be on the safe side. You got a Omen back at spawn trying to clutch up for the team, and nobody else is capitalizing off this moment. So it leaves nobody but Zach alive, trying to bring things together, trying to put at least a lid on this round, but you got 3 hungry players trying to put a lid on this entire game.
Oh, and that swing by Zach. They know he's not behind box because they put the paint shell there and there was no movement. They have to be on sight. And with that little bit of a peek that you're asking for Bruton Parker, it tells you everything you need. A fish in a barrel, trapped, and you know exactly what you got to do. Run them up the tree and wait for them to tire their own selves out. Great map for Bruton Parker. A huge just lead they gained in the first half, and they didn't let off the gas in the second. They didn't stop and say, okay, let's play a little slower. Let's change the style. They knew what the limit was. They knew how they could play it. They knew what gave them the huge lead in the 7-round win in a row they asked for on splits, and they tried to use that over to give just that edge to say 13 rounds is all we need, and we'll give you a couple, but even in an eco round, we'll give you trouble. And I think that's the biggest thing for Bruton Parker.
I mean, considering what we saw to Bruton Parker, I mean, starting off this entire thing, I'm just taking our initial impression because we hadn't seen him really all season on stream, and that was our first real look at him. And for me, it started off, it went from silence to Sprackle Joy, considering that, I mean, they were just there. They showed up when it became the most necessary. And while they weren't really there playing right off the get-go, I was kind of saying, all right, UGA, they really have an idea of how this map is working. sunset, they just completely turned it on a head. It was
Yeah.
a complete, absolute crescendo of a performance out of this team because they just kept on becoming more and more and more and more and more of a force over the course of this night. And to where you understand that maybe that first round, that bye form really was just a moment where they just kind of not got complacent, but just didn't find the necessary competitive edge that we find on a week to week basis to kind of keep them warm, keep them hot, keep them ready, keep them gunning. So now being back in it took them a little bit, but this team has definitely lived up to the hype that I was expecting to see.
Yeah, if you try to cook Dallas, if you turn on the stovetop and try to put the pot or the pan directly on it, it's not hot enough to cook your food. You can't put the steak in the pan and expect it to go ahead and start sizzling and get that crust you're asking for. It's got to heat up. And when you see it heat up, it doesn't lose that heat until you turn off the burner. And I never felt that we saw Bruton Parker step off the gas, step off the
Right.
burner, turn that down a little bit because the heat in the kitchen was too hot. No, if anything, they only got hotter. They only elevated their playstyle even further and continued to rise to the occasion. It was beautiful. That's what you have to ask for a team in playoffs here for SCL, who's trying to cement themselves not just as a team, but possibly the team to look at heading into the finals and maybe even further beyond that. They're trying to punch their ticket here into the LAN event as well. We'll have to see, but they are looking real darn good. But that's it for us for the SEL for this week. We have more action coming up next week, so don't go anywhere. More Rocket League on Wednesday, but the real ones here on Thursdays. We'll see you guys then. Stay tuned for more.